In Genesis we can read about Joseph, a man who ended up being very great in the land of Egypt, in fact second only to Pharaoh, but who began his time in Egypt as a slave, sold into slavery by his own brothers. Now there's a lot in this account that can encourage born again Christians today who are perhaps wondering what's going on, or why a vision, a word, a prophecy or something that they believe the Lord has given them is taking so long to come to pass. Well, God gave Joseph 2 dreams concerning his life too. Yet from that time it seemed that everything went totally against what God had shown him. Rather than his brothers bowing down to him, they sold him into slavery instead, and yet the time did come for this dream to come to pass. But Joseph had to go through a lot before that was to happen. But had it come earlier, he wouldn't have been the man that he was. God took him through some things which changed him on the inside. See, the Lord did a work in Joseph. Those hardships that he went through, they all served a purpose, and the Lord raised him up at exactly the right time to help those people in their time of desperation. Now Joseph had to trust God even when he was in prison, and there wasn't even a reason. It was a trumped up charge, if you like. He was sent to prison when he hadn't really done anything wrong. But God hadn't forgotten Joseph. Something bigger was going on though, and that's why it may have looked that way. But what was happening actually involved the whole land, and there was a need that was going to arise in the future. Although his path had some pretty big pitfalls along the way, God did encourage Joseph along that way. He gave him favour in the eyes of his master Potiphar, for example. You can read that in Genesis 39, 1-5, until Potiphar's wife lied about Joseph and had him thrown in jail. But then God gave him favour in the eyes of the keeper of the prison. Listen to this. This is Genesis 39, just 21-23. But remember, Joseph's in prison when he's not actually done anything wrong. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy, and he gave him favour in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever they did there, it was his doing. The keeper of the prison did not look into anything that was under Joseph's authority, because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made it prosper. You see, so even through these difficult times, God did encourage Joseph, and he did give him favour, and Joseph kept on trusting God. Now if you know the story, you'll know that while he was in prison also, 2 of the other prisoners had dreams that Joseph interpreted, and because he interpreted them correctly, that was eventually in turn what brought him before Pharaoh, which is what brought him about his promotion. So all the things were working together for good for Joseph to bring him to that end goal. But it didn't all happen at once. Those visions, those dreams he had weren't fulfilled straight away. But they did come to pass at the right time. Even though Joseph at times have wondered what was going on and where God was always with him, and he encouraged him along the way. And everything was working together for good for Joseph. Now in Romans 8:28, I just want to finish with this, because it says, and we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. And sometimes we may not know what's going on in the short term, but if God's spoken to you, you can be sure that and if you love him and you're walking with him, you can be sure that all things are working together for good for you as well.